Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was the son of midnight? Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The scent of the Koyama household was a distinct, layered thing. To the public, the R-rated hero, Midnight smelled of expensive perfume, somnambulist pheromones, and the metallic tang of adrenaline. But to Izuku Midoriya, legally Izuku Koyama, though he used his father's surname for school to avoid the press, the apartment smelled of lavender laundry detergent, old paper, and burnt toast, especially burnt toast. Izuku emerged from his bedroom, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His room was a shrine, a chaotic collision of two worlds. On one wall, limited edition All Might posters were plastered in chronological order of the eras. On the other, shelves overflowed with textbooks on criminal psychology, quirk law, and anatomy, gifts from his uncles. He shuffled into the kitchen, his dark green hair a bird's nest of tangles. Standing at the stove, humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like a commercial jingle for hairspray, was Namuri Koyama. She wasn't wearing her dominatrix-style hero costume. Instead, the 18 hero was clad in an oversized, fluffy pink bathrobe that said Queen on the back in rhinestones, her spiky dark hair tied up in a messy bun. "Morning, my little green bean," Namuri chirped, spinning around with a spatula in hand. She struck a pose, hip cocked, spatula pointed at the ceiling. Even at 6:30 a.m., she couldn't turn off the performance. "Breakfast is served. I call it the scramble of justice." Izuku looked at the plate. The eggs were brown. "You burned them again, Mom," Izuku said, a small, affectionate smile tugging at his lips. He moved past her to the fridge to grab the milk. "It's not burned, it's caramelized," Namuri insisted, dropping the plate onto the Marble Island counter. She leaned over, pinching Izuku's cheek with enough force to make him wince. "You need the protein. Big day today. Last year of junior high starts winding down. The high school applications go out soon, right?" Izuku stiffened. He poured the milk into a glass, staring at the white liquid swirling around. "Yeah. Today." Namuri's playful demeanor softened instantly. She was a hero, one of the best in the business at reading people. She could spot a villain's hesitation from a block away. She could certainly spot her son's anxiety from 2 feet. She moved around the counter, her fluffy slippers shuffling softly, and wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his head. "Izuku," she murmured, the theatricality gone. "We've talked about this." "I know," Izuku said quietly. "General studies. Or support. Uncle Hizashi said I have a good ear for sound quirks, and Uncle Shota said I'm logical enough for management. They say that because they love you," Namuri said, squeezing him tight. "And because they want you safe. You know how the world works, Izuku. You've seen the reports on my desk. You've seen the hospital visits." "I know," he repeated, pulling away gently to pick up his fork. He poked at the brown eggs. "But I also know that Uncle Shota fights quirkless half the time. He erases their power, and then it's just him and a capture scarf. Shota is a lunatic who lives on jelly pouches and dry eye drops," Namuri countered, pouring herself a black coffee. "And he has a quirk to level the playing field if he gets overwhelmed." "Izuku, sweetie, you have my heart. You have my tactical mind. But you don't have a quirk." "I have the Aikido training you gave me," Izuku mumbled. "And the bow staff lessons. Self-defense," she corrected sharply. "To protect yourself. Not to throw yourself at a villain with a mutation quirk that turns his skin into titanium." She sighed, running a hand through her bangs. "Just promise me you'll keep your options open? Yui has the best business course in the country." Izuku forced a smile. It was a practiced expression, one he had learned from watching her handle the press after a botched mission. "Smile, and the world believes you're okay." "I promise, Mom. I'll be realistic." "Good." She kissed his forehead, leaving a faint lipstick mark. "Now eat your carbonized eggs. I have a patrol shift starting at noon, so I might be late tonight. There's leftovers in the fridge, not cooked by me. Take out from that Thai place you like. Love you, Mom. Love you more, my little prince." The walk to Aldera Junior High was a study in desensitization. Most kids stopped to gawk when a hero fight broke out. When Kamui Woods flew overhead, chasing a purse snatcher with a gigantification quirk, the streets clogged with onlookers taking photos. Izuku didn't stop. He kept walking, his eyes tracking the scene with a critical, almost bored detachment. Kamui is relying too much on his lacquered chain prison, Izuku thought, adjusting the strap of his yellow backpack. In an urban environment with narrow alleys, he's going to cause property damage to the storefronts. The insurance paperwork is going to be a nightmare. He should have angled for a takedown on the roof. He pulled out his notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13, and scribbled a quick note. Kamui Woods, rising star, but lacks spatial awareness in high-density commercial zones. Needs to minimize collateral. It was the curse of being raised backstage. He knew the heroes weren't gods. He knew All Might had bad back days, though he never met the man. Uncle Hizashi complained about the symbol of peace's fandom mails constantly. He knew Endeavor was a PR nightmare. He knew his own mother, the glamorous Midnight, wore orthopedic inserts in her high-heeled boots. He arrived at Aldera just as the bell rang. The atmosphere in the classroom was electric, buzzing with the chaotic energy of teenagers on the brink of freedom. Izuku slid into his seat near the back. He kept his head down, pulling out a textbook. He just wanted to get through the day. So, the homeroom teacher announced, slamming a stack of papers onto his desk. As third-year students, it's time to think seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives. The class went silent for a beat. But who am I kidding? The teacher grinned, throwing the papers into the air. You all want to be heroes, don't you? The room exploded. Quirks flared everywhere, eyes popping out, fingers stretching, minor telekinesis lifting pencils. It was a display of genetic lottery winners celebrating their luck. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said, waving a hand. But remember, it's against the law to use them in school. Hey, teach! The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo sat with his feet up on his desk, leaning back with an arrogant sneer. Don't lump me in with these extras. They'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister. I'm the real deal. The class erupted in boos, but Bakugo just laughed, small explosions popping in his palms. Shut up, extras! I'm going for the top. I'm gonna surpass All Might and become the richest, most famous hero of all time. Ah yes, the teacher mused, looking at his clipboard. Bakugo, you're aiming for UA High, correct? The class gasped. UA was the gold standard. The acceptance rate was abysmal. That's exactly right. Bakugo grinned savagely. I aced the mock tests. I'm the only one here with the stuff to make it. Oh, the teacher added absently. Midoriya, didn't you put down UA as your first choice too? The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum, sucking the air out of the room. Then laughter. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course just by studying. He's quirkless. What's he gonna do, annoy the villains to death? Bakugo didn't laugh. He froze. The explosions in his hand stopped, replaced by a low, smoking hiss. Slowly, he turned his head to look at Izuku. Izuku didn't flinch. He sat straight, his hands folded on his desk. He dealt with this reaction his entire life. They got rid of the rule, Izuku said, his voice steady, though his heart hammered against his ribs. There's no rule stating quirkless people can't apply. It's just, never been done. DKU, Bakugo lunged. He launched himself off his chair, his right hand crackling with nitroglycerin, aimed straight for Izuku's face. In a normal timeline, Izuku might have flinched. He might have thrown his arms up in futile defense. But Izuku Kuyama had spent his weekends in a dojo with a mother who used whips and fans to disarm men twice her size. He had spent his summers listening to Aizawa lecture on center of gravity. Izuku moved. He didn't panic. He saw the telegraph swing, a right hook, wide and sloppy, relying entirely on the explosion for impact. Izuku slid his chair back with his heel, dropping his center of gravity. As Bakugo's arm came within range, Izuku didn't block it. He stepped into the guard, his left hand snapping up to catch Bakugo's wrist, while his right hand pressed flat against Bakugo's elbow. Fluid motion. Use his momentum. Izuku pivoted his hips. With a sharp exhale, he redirected Bakugo's lunging force, guiding the explosive boy past him. Bakugo stumbled, his explosion detonating harmlessly against the chalkboard behind Izuku, singeing the day's schedule. He crashed into a desk, knocking it over. The class went dead silent. Bakugo scrambled up, his eyes wide with shock, then red with fury. Smoke curled from his palms. You overextended, Izuku said breathlessly, standing up and putting the desk between them. His hands were shaking slightly, but he hid them in his pockets, a trick Namuri taught him. You always lead with a right hook when you're angry, Kaken. It's predictable. Predictable? Bakugo's voice was a low growl. You think a little parlor trick makes you a hero? You're a pebble, Deku. A quirkless, worthless pebble. That's enough. The teacher finally intervened, though he looked more annoyed by the damaged chalkboard than the assault. Bakugo, sit down. Midoriya, stop provoking him. Provoking him? Izuku bit the inside of his cheek. Right. Because existing is a provocation. Bakugo sat down, but his glare burned into the back of Izuku's skull for the rest of the day. The final bell was a mercy. Izuku packed his bag quickly, eager to escape before Bakugo could corner him for round 2. He knew the redirection was a fluke. If Bakugo really wanted to hurt him, he couldn't stop it. Aikido worked on thugs. It didn't work on a living artillery cannon. He slipped out the back door, checking his phone. A text from Namuri. Patrol running late. Honey, there's a villain standoff in Tatooine Station. Avoid the area. Love you. 3-inch. Noted, Izuku muttered, shoving the phone into his pocket. He took the long way, avoiding the main station. He walked along the canal, the murky green water reflecting the afternoon sun. He pulled out his notebook again, looking at the fresh burn mark on the cover where Bakugo had grabbed it earlier in the hallway. The best hero. Izuku whispered to himself. He stopped under an overpass, the shadows cooling the air. Mom says be realistic. Uncle Shota says be logical. Uncle Hizashi says, well, he just yells yeah. Izuku sighed, leaning against the concrete wall. But who is going to save the people who are scared? Who saves the people when the heroes are busy with paperwork? He clenched his fist. I can do it. I have the gear. I have the training. If I just build some support items to mimic mobility. A gurgling sound interrupted his monologue. Izuku froze. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, a sensation his mother called the spider sense, though she stole the term from a pre-quirk comic book. He turned slowly. From the sewer grate a few meters away, a mass of dark green sludge was oozing out. It rose up, coalescing into a grotesque, liquid shape with 2 manic, bulging eyes and a maw of jagged yellow teeth. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The villain hissed, his voice wet and distorted. You'll do perfectly, kid. Izuku's analysis brain kicked in instantly, overriding the fear. Fluid body type. Physical attacks are useless. No visible solid points. He's looking for a host to hide in. The villain lunged. Izuku scrambled back, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, weighted metal cylinder, a tactical pen Namuri had given him for his birthday. Go for the eyes, she had told him. If they don't have eyes, go for the throat. If they don't have a throat, run. He didn't have time to run. The sludge slammed into him. It wasn't like being hit. It was like being drowned. The cold, foul-smelling liquid forced its way into his mouth and nose. Don't struggle, the villain whispered right into his ear, the sludge vibrating. It'll only hurt for a minute. Thanks for the help, kid. You're a hero to me. I can't breathe. Izuku clawed at the fluid. His fingers sank uselessly into the muck. He tried to stab the pen into the villain's eye, but the sludge caught his wrist, crushing his grip until the pen clattered to the concrete. Is this it? Panic flared, white-hot and blinding. His vision began to spot. Mom will come home and I won't be there. She'll find my backpack. She'll blame herself. So weak, the villain laughed. No. Izuku's hand flailed, brushing against his belt. Clipped there was a small pouch, another gift, this one a joke from Uncle Hizashi, but filled with a midnight special powder blend. It was basically highly concentrated pepper spray and itching powder in a fragile glass vial, meant to be thrown at perverts on the train. With the last of his strength, Izuku ripped the pouch free and crushed it in his hand, right inside the sludge mass. The reaction was instantaneous. The villain shrieked. Arg! My eyes! What is that? The sludge recoiled, loosening just enough for Izuku to suck in a ragged gasp of air. It wasn't a victory. The villain was still huge, still deadly, but the chemical irritant had bought him a second. You brat! The villain raised a liquid tendril to smash Izuku into the pavement. Clang! The manhole cover flew into the air, spinning like a coin. Do not fear! The voice boomed, echoing off the concrete walls like thunder. It was a voice Izuku had listened to on YouTube loops for 10 years. A voice that meant safety. A massive figure exploded from the sewer, landing with a heavy thud that cracked the pavement. He was blond, muscular, and grinning with a blinding intensity. For I am here, All Might. The villain panicked, lashing out with a desperate whip of sludge. All Might! Stay back! All Might didn't stay back. He crouched, his fist glowing with raw power. He didn't even touch the villain directly. He punched the air. Texas. Smash! The wind pressure alone was a hurricane. Izuku felt himself being lifted off the ground, the sludge ripped away from his body by the sheer force of the gale. The villain exploded into droplets, splattered harmlessly against the tunnel walls. Izuku hit the ground, rolling. He gasped, coughing up the last of the slime, his throat burning. As the wind died down, silence returned to the underpass. Apologies, young man. All Might stood tall, giving a thumbs up, though smoke seemed to be steaming off his body. I got a little lost in the sewer network, but thanks to you stalling him, I was able to catch the perpetrator. Izuku stared. He wiped the slime from his mouth. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might crack a rib. All Might. Indeed. Now I must get this fellow to the authorities. All Might began scooping the scattered sludge into empty soda bottles he had in a plastic grocery bag. Izuku scrambled to his feet. He's leaving. He's already leaving. I have to ask him. Wait. Izuku stepped forward, swaying slightly. Please. I have to ask you something. All Might paused, screwing the cap onto a bottle. I am in a bit of a rush, young citizen. Evil never sleeps. I'm quirkless. Izuku shouted. The words hung in the air. All Might stopped moving. My mom, she's a pro-hero. Midnight. I grew up watching her. Watching all of you. Izuku's hands clenched into fists at his sides. But I don't have power. I just have my mind and some training. Everyone says I can't do it. Even my mom thinks it's too dangerous. He looked up, tears stinging his eyes. Can I be a hero like you? Can someone without a quirk save people? All Might looked at the boy. He looked at the bruised neck, the red eyes, the pepper spray residue on his hands. He saw the way the boy stood, not cowering, but desperate. All Might's smile faltered. A puff of steam exploded from his body. Young man. And then, the symbol of peace shrank. In a poof of white smoke, the muscle vanished. Standing there was a skeletal, gaunt man with sunken eyes, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Izuku screamed. Imposter! Where did All Might go? I am All Might, the skeleton wheezed, wiping blood from his chin. You know how guys at the pool suck in their gut to look good? It's like that. That's a gross oversimplification. Izuku stammered, his analyst's brain short-circuiting. The skeletal All Might sat down heavily on the curb. Look, kid. You know about the hero world. If you're Midnight's son, you know the reality better than most. He lifted his shirt. Izuku gasped. The scar was horrific, a crater in the man's side, the skin purple and twisted. 5 years ago, All Might said softly. Respiratory system destroyed. Stomach removed. I can do hero work for about 3 hours a day. The rest of the time, I look like this. Toxic chainsaw didn't do that, Izuku whispered, his mind racing through case files. He didn't have the output. Smart kid. No, the world doesn't know about this one. And they can't know. All Might looked Izuku in the eye. The blue irises were intense, piercing. I smiled to hide the fear, kid, to trick the fear inside me, and to put the public at ease. He sighed. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives. Some villains just can't be beaten without power. I cannot, in good conscience, tell you that you can become a hero without a quirk. The risk is too high. Izuku felt like the ground had opened up beneath him again. Oh, he whispered. If you want to save people, All Might continued, standing up and dusting off his oversized pants. Become a police officer. They get a lot of crap because the heroes capture the villains, but it's a fine profession. Or a doctor. It's not flashy, but it's noble. All Might walked toward the tunnel exit. It's good to dream, young man. But you have to ensure your dreams are attainable. He left. Izuku stood alone in the tunnel. The smell of sludge and ozone lingered. Attainable. He let out a shaky breath. He felt numb. It was what his mother said. It was what everyone said. Maybe they're right. He started walking. He didn't know where. He just walked. Explosions. The sound snapped Izuku out of his daze. He was in the shopping district. A crowd had gathered. Smoke billowed into the sky, black and thick. I should go home, Izuku thought dully. Mom will be worried, but his feet moved on their own. He pushed through the crowd. It's a villain! He captured a kid! Where are the heroes? Izuku reached the police tape. He looked past the line. The street was a war zone. Fires burned everywhere. And in the center of the inferno was the sludge villain. He escaped? Izuku's blood ran cold. He must have dropped the bottle when he jumped, when I grabbed his leg. It's my fault, Izuku whispered. The heroes were standing around, helpless. Death arms couldn't get close to the fire. Kamui Woods had no anchors. Empty Lady couldn't fit in the street. We have to wait for someone with a suitable quirk. Death arms yelled. The kid's suffocating. A bystander screamed. Izuku looked at the villain. The sludge was writhing. And in the center of the muck, a face emerged. Katsuki Bakugo. His eyes were wide, filled with pure, unadulterated terror. He was thrashing, trying to get a breath, but the sludge was forcing its way down his throat. Kaken. The heroes were waiting. They were calculating the risk. They were being logical. They were being realistic. Bakugo's eyes met Izuku's. For the first time in their lives, Bakugo wasn't looking at him with anger. He was pleading. Don't look, don't look, don't look. Izuku's legs moved. He ducked under the police tape. Hey! Kid! Get back! Death Arms shouted. Izuku didn't hear him. He was sprinting. The heat was intense, stinging his eyebrows. The smell of burning rubber filled his nose. Think. Think. What do I have? He had his backpack. You again? The sludge villain roared, recognizing the green hair. Izuku didn't slow down. He swung his backpack by one strap, using the centrifugal force, and hurled it. It wasn't a random throw. He aimed for the eyes. The heavy bag, filled with textbooks and hero journals, slammed into the villain's liquid eye. Gah! The villain flinched, his hold on Bakugo loosening for a fraction of a second. Izuku slid on the asphalt, scraping his knees, and grabbed the tactical pen from the ground where he dropped it earlier. No, wait, he didn't have the pen. He had nothing. No. He had his hands. He lunged into the fire, ignoring the heat. He grabbed the sludge around Bakugo's mouth and pulled. Deku? Bakugo choked out, coughing. What the hell? I couldn't just stand there. Izuku screamed, tears streaming down his face as he clawed at the mud. You looked like you were asking for help. The sludge villain recovered. I'm done playing with you. A massive wave of sludge rose up, poised to crush both of them. Izuku shielded Bakugo with his body. He closed his eyes. Sorry, Mom. Boom. The impact didn't come. Izuku opened his eyes. All Might stood there. Not the skeleton. The Titan. He was blocking the sludge blast with one arm, blood trickling from his mouth, but his smile was ferocious. I really am pathetic. All Might roared. I told you to be realistic, and here you are, teaching me what it means to be a hero. All Might cocked his other fist back. The air pressure dropped. Detroit. Smash! The punch changed the weather. The upward updraft created a localized tornado. The sludge was atomized. The fires were snuffed out instantly. Rain began to fall from the rapidly cooling clouds. The crowd went silent. Then they cheered. The aftermath was a blur of lectures. The pro-heroes scolded Izuku for being reckless. Death Arms got right in his face. You could have gotten yourself killed. You have no quirk. That was suicide. Izuku took it, nodding, his head bowed. Meanwhile, the heroes were praising Bakugo for his bravery and his powerful quirk. It was unfair. It was typical. But then, as the crowd dispersed and the sun began to set, Izuku started the walk home. He was exhausted. He smelled like sewer water and smoke. Nemuri was going to kill him. DKU, Izuku turned. Bakugo stood there, panting, his uniform ruined. I didn't ask for your help. Bakugo yelled, shaking. I didn't need you. You didn't save me. Don't look down on me, you damn nerd. He turned and stomped away. Izuku sighed. At least he's consistent. I am here. All Might slid out from around a corner, striking a pose, before instantly deflating into a cloud of blood and smoke. Young Midoriya, the skeletal man coughed. All Might? Izuku blinked. Shouldn't you be at the hospital? I have to tell you something. All Might walked over, looking solemn. I watched you. Back there. When everyone else, including me, hesitated, you moved. The wind blew through the street, ruffling Izuku's messy hair. Top heroes have stories about their school days, All Might said. And most of them have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku's breath hitched. He clutched his chest. That happened to you today, didn't it? Tears began to fall again. The validation he had craved his entire life. Not from his mother, who loved him unconditionally, but from the world itself. Young man, All Might said, extending a hand. You can become a hero. Izuku fell to his knees, sobbing. And All Might continued, I have a proposal for you. A way to inherit my power. The apartment was dark when Izuku got home. He unlocked the door quietly. Mom? The lights flicked on. Nemuri Kayama stood in the hallway. She was still in her hero costume, a skin-tight white bodysuit with dark purple accents, though she had removed the domino mask. Her makeup was smudged. Her eyes were red, and she was holding the remote to the TV, which was paused on a news replay of the sludge incident. Specifically, the frame where a green-haired boy was running toward a villain. Izuku, she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was terrifyingly calm. Mom, you ran into a fire, she said, stepping forward. The whip at her hip clinked. You ran toward a villain that had incapacitated 3 pros. Kaken was dying, Izuku said, his voice trembling but firm. I couldn't just watch. Nemuri stared at him. She looked at the burns on his uniform. She looked at the determination in his eyes, a look she had seen on All Might, on Endeavor, on herself. She dropped the remote. It clattered on the floor. In 2 strides, she crossed the distance, and pulled him into a hug so tight it knocked the wind out of him. She buried her face in his smoky hair. You idiot, she sobbed, her composure breaking. You reckless, stupid, brave idiot. I'm sorry, Izuku whispered, hugging her back. I was so scared, she cried. I saw the news. I thought. She pulled back, gripping his shoulders. She looked him over, checking for injuries with a mother's frantic precision. Are you okay? Did you inhale the smoke? We need to get you to a doctor. I'm fine, Mom. Really? You're not fine. You're grounded. You're grounded until you're 30. She wiped her eyes, sniffing. But, she took a deep breath. You saved him. You did what the others didn't. There was a knock at the door. Nemuri stiffened. She turned toward the door, her hero instincts flaring. Who is it? It's 9 p.m. It is I. Came a muffled, booming voice. Just a normal citizen. Izuku's eyes widened. Oh no. Nemuri narrowed her eyes. She stalked to the door and peered through the peephole. She frowned. She opened the door. Standing there was a very tall, very skinny blonde man in a baggy suit, holding a fruit basket. Tashinori? Nemuri blinked. She knew All Might's secret identity. She was one of the few high-ranking heroes who did, mostly because Aizawa had figured it out and told her. What are you doing here? All Might, Tashinori Yagi, bowed nervously. Good evening, Midnight. I came to speak with you. And your son. He looked past her, catching Izuku's eye. He winked. Nemuri looked from All Might to Izuku. She saw the secret look pass between them. Her eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. "You have 5 minutes," Namiri hissed, her voice dripping with maternal venom. "And if this is about what I think it is, you better hope your regeneration quirk works on whipping injuries, Yaidi." She stepped aside. "Come in. We have burnt eggs." The silence in the Kuyama household was usually a comfortable thing, filled with the scratching of Izuku's pencils or the hum of the refrigerator. Tonight, however, the silence was heavy enough to crush a diamond. Izuku sat on the plush velvet sofa, his hands gripping his knees so tightly his knuckles were white. To his left sat Toshinori Yagi, All Might, looking like a scarecrow stuffed into a suit 3 sizes too big, balancing a delicate porcelain teacup on his bony knee. Across from them, sitting on the armchair like a queen on a throne of judgment, was Namiri Kiyama. She had changed out of her hero costume into a silk robe, but the air of authority hadn't vanished. If anything, stripped of the midnight persona, she was more terrifying. She was just Mom. And Mom was pissed. "So," Namiri said, her voice dangerously even. She took a sip of her tea, her eyes never leaving the skeletal man's face. "Let me get this straight. You, the #1 hero, the symbol of peace, saw my quirkless, 15-year-old son run into a burning building to save a hostage." "Ah yes," Toshinori squeaked, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat, trying to summon a deeper register. "He showed great courage. And your response to this act of mere suicidal recklessness," Namiri continued, setting her cup down with a sharp clink, "was to follow him home and offer him a quirk that can, and I quote, blow his limbs off if his body isn't ready?" Toshinori flinched. "Well, when you put it like that, how else should I put it, Yagi?" Namiri stood up. She wasn't shouting, which was worse. She began to pace the small living room, the silk of her robe rustling like dry leaves. "You want to turn my son into a vessel for a power that has destroyed your own body. I've seen the medical reports, Toshinori. I know what your insides look like. It's a miracle you're standing." "Mom, please," Izuku interjected, his voice small. "Quiet, Izuku," she snapped, though not unkindly. She stopped in front of All Might. "Why him? There are thousands of kids with strong reinforcement quirks. Endeavor's son. Some 3rd year at UA. Why the quirkless kid with the single mother?" Toshinori set his tea down. The trembling in his hands stopped. He looked up, and for a moment, the blue fire in his eyes returned, the spirit of the symbol of peace shining through the emaciated frame. "Because he moved," All Might said softly. "Because out of everyone there, including me, including Death Arms and Kamiri Woods, he was the only one who didn't hesitate. You know as well as I do, Namiri, being a hero isn't about the quirk. It's about the spirit to meddle where you aren't wanted because someone needs help." He gestured to Izuku. "He has the heart of a hero. All he lacks is the vessel to carry that will. I am fading, Namiri. The world needs a successor. And I believe, no, I know, it's him." Namiri looked at All Might, then at Izuku. She saw the way Izuku was looking at the skeletal man, not with hero worship, not anymore. It was determination. It was a hunger to prove himself. She sighed, a long, weary sound that seemed to deflate her entire posture. She ran a hand through her dark hair. "I need a drink," she muttered. "And I need a second opinion." She reached for her phone on the coffee table and dialed a number on speed dial. She put it on speaker. "Yeah. Midnight. What's the word, bird? You calling about the drinks on Friday or?" "Hizashi, shut up and get over here," Namiri said flatly. "I have All Might in my living room. Izuku wants to inherit a superpower, and I'm about 5 minutes away from committing a felony." There was a pause on the line. "I'll be there in 10. Don't murder the symbol of peace. The paperwork is a nightmare." True to his word, Hizashi Yamada, the voice hero, present Mike, burst through the front door exactly 9 minutes later. He wasn't wearing his hero gear, opting instead for a leather jacket, a t-shirt with a loud graphic print, and his hair tied back in a messy ponytail rather than his signature gravity-defying style. He still wore his yellow-tinted glasses, though. All right, the party has arrived," Hizashi announced, kicking the door shut behind him. He looked around the room, taking in the tableau, the anxious teenager, the exhausted mother, and the skeleton man. "Whoa," Hizashi whistled, sliding his glasses down his nose. You weren't kidding. He really looks like a draugr in person. Good to see you too, Yamada, Toshinori sighed. Hisashi flopped onto the sofa next to Izuku, wrapping a casual arm around the boy's shoulders. Hey there, little listener. You okay? You look like you've been through a washing machine. I'm okay, Uncle Hisashi, Izuku murmured. Uncle Hisashi, Toshinori repeated, blinking. You are close? We go way back, Hisashi grinned, pointing at Namiri. I knew Namiri back when she was just starting out, and trying to convince the board that her original costume was artistic expression. I've known this kid since he was in diapers. Changed a few of them, too. He turned serious, the perpetual grin softening. So, one for all. That's the big secret, huh? Toshinori nodded gravely. He quickly summarized the nature of his power, the stockpiling of strength, the transferability, and the current state of his health. Hisashi listened, nodding along, his finger tapping a rhythm on his knee. When Toshinori finished, Hisashi leaned back, looking at the ceiling. Heavy stuff, Hisashi murmured. He looked at Namiri. And you're worried the kid's gonna explode. He has no base reinforcement, Namiri argued, sitting on the edge of the coffee table. He's small, Hisashi. He takes after his father in build, lean, not bulky. If he punches something with All Might's power, his arm won't just break, it'll turn into mist. That is why we train. Toshinori interjected eagerly. I have designed a regiment. They aim to pass, American Dream Plan. It involves cleaning up Dagoba Municipal Park to build his core strength over the next 10 months. He pulled a crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket and uncrumpled it, revealing a schedule that looked more like a torture device than a workout plan. Namiri snatched the paper. She scanned it, her eyebrows climbing higher and higher. Nutrition plan, sleep schedule, hauling refrigerators. Yagi, this is just weightlifting. This is brute force. Brute force is the foundation. Toshinori defended. It's outdated, Namiri scoffed. She looked at Hisashi. Tell him. Hisashi looked at Izuku. Izuku, what do you want? The room went quiet. Izuku looked up. I want to do it, Izuku said. His voice didn't waver this time. I know it's dangerous. I know I might get hurt. But today, when I pulled Kakin out of that slime, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel useless. I felt like me. He looked at his mother. Mom, you told me that your quirk isn't a combat type. You told me you had to learn martial arts, learn to use the whip, learn to use your psychology because you couldn't just punch your way through problems. You made it work. He stood up, clenching his fists. I've spent my whole life analyzing heroes. I know their strengths, their weaknesses. I have the knowledge. All I'm missing is the tool. If All Might is giving me that tool, I can't turn it down. I won't. Hisashi smiled, a genuine, warm expression. He looked at Namiri. He sounds like you. Namiri closed her eyes. She pinched the bridge of her nose. He's stubborn. That's definitely me. She took a deep breath and opened her eyes. They were hard, sharp, and calculating. She turned the paper with the workout plan around and slammed it onto the table. Fine. Izuku's face lit up. Really? But Namiri raised a finger, silencing him. On my terms. She pointed a manicured nail at All Might. You handle the strength. You build his muscles so he doesn't explode. But I handle the combat training. I handle the flexibility. And I handle the diet. The diet? All Might blinked. I see boiled chicken and broccoli on this list, Yagi. He's a growing boy, not a bodybuilder in his 40s. He needs collagen, he needs flexibility supplements, he needs balance. She crossed her arms. And Shota is going to help. Uncle Shota? Izuku squeaked. Does he have to? If you're going to UA, you're going to have to deal with Eraserhead anyway, Namiri said with a grim smile. Better you learn how to handle him now. He'll teach you binding cloth techniques. If you're going to have a strength quirk, you need a way to control the battlefield so you don't just level city blocks. Hisashi laughed, slapping his knee. Oh, Shota is gonna hate this. It's perfect. Namiri turned to Izuku, her expression softening. She walked over and cupped his face in her hands. You're going to suffer, Izuku. For 10 months, you are going to wish you were dead. You're going to juggle school, this insane workout, and my training. No video games. No staying up late reading forums. Are you ready for that? Izuku covered her hands with his own. He smiled, and there was a glint of steel in it. I'm ready, Mom. Month 1, the trash heap and the whip. Dagoba Municipal Park was less of a park and more of a monument to human negligence. Mountains of scrap metal, old tires, broken appliances, and unidentifiable sludge covered the sand, blocking the view of the ocean. Holy stinking super crap, All Might intoned, standing atop a pile of old microwaves in his muscle form. This is your canvas, young Midoriya. You shall restore this coastline to its former glory. Izuku, wearing a blue tracksuit, looked at the expanse of garbage. It was daunting. But then he looked at his phone. Nemuri had sent him a text, don't forget to stretch. If you pull a hamstring, I'm making you drink kale smoothies for a week. Right. Izuku shouted. Let's do this. The first month was hell. The mornings belonged to All Might. Izuku hauled tires. He dragged safes. He pushed truck beds through the sand. His muscles screamed. Every fiber of his being ached. All Might was an inspiring cheerleader, constantly shouting go beyond. And plus ultra. But his instruction was vague at best. Put your back into it. And squeeze your buttocks, were his primary teaching methods. The evenings belonged to Midnight. The Kayama living room, and occasionally a rented training studio, became a torture chamber of a different kind. Lower! Nemuri commanded. Izuku was in a splits position, his legs trembling. Mom, I physically can't. You can and you will, Nemuri said, pushing down gently but firmly on his shoulders. Power requires a base, Izuku. If you have super strength but you're stiff as a board, the recoil will snap your spine. You need to be like water. Like a whip. She stepped back and cracked her own whip, a shortened training version she used indoors. Again. The redirection form. Bakugo lunges. What do you do? Izuku scrambled up, his legs feeling like jelly. He grabbed a training staff. I pivot? Show me. She lunged. Not at full speed, obviously, but fast enough. Izuku tried to block, but his footing was off. Nemuri's whip wrapped around his ankle and yanked. He hit the mat with a thud. Dead, she stated flatly. You tried to meet force with force. You don't have the strength for that yet. Flow, Izuku. Use my momentum against me. It's hard when my arms feel like lead from moving refrigerators all morning, Izuku groaned, staring at the ceiling. Heroes work when they're tired, Nemuri said, extending a hand to help him up. Get up. Again. Month 3, Uncle Hizashi's karaoke night. Louder! I can't! Izuku rasped. They were on the roof of an office building owned by one of Hizashi's radio station contacts. It was late, the city lights shimmering below. You're shouting from your throat, little listener. Hizashi tapped his own chest. You gotta shout from the diaphragm. If you're gonna be a hero, your voice is a weapon too. You need to command the scene. You need to reassure the civilians. Hizashi took a deep breath and unleashed a controlled burst of sound. Not his quirk, just pure projection. Everything is fine, it echoed off the nearby skyscrapers. A dog barked in the distance. Try it. Hizashi grinned. Imagine you just landed. The villain is there. The people are scared. What do you say? Izuku took a deep breath. He thought about All Might. He thought about his mom. He thought about the scared look in Bakugo's eyes. I am here! Izuku shouted. It cracked halfway through. It sounded like a puberty-stricken rooster. Hizashi snickered. Okay, solid B for effort. But let's work on the pitch. You sound like you're asking a question. I am here? No. It's a statement. It's a fact. My voice is changing, Izuku complained, rubbing his throat. Embrace it. Let the bass drop. Hizashi put an arm around him. Hey, you're looking less like a beanpole, by the way. Your mom says you cleared the entire north section of the beach. Yeah, Izuku smiled, flexing his hand. Calluses were forming thick and hard on his palms. I can move the fridge now. Just not very far. Progress is progress, Hizashi said. He looked at Izuku over the rim of his glasses. You know, Nemuri is really proud of you. She complains about the laundry smelling like garbage juice, but she brags about you to the other teachers in the lounge. Izuku felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the summer heat. Really? Oh yeah? Even Aizawa grunted in approval last week. That's basically a standing ovation from him. Month 5, Enter the Caterpillar. The meeting with Shota Aizawa happened in a warehouse district gym. Aizawa looked as tired as ever, wrapped in his sleeping bag, sipping a jelly pouch. I don't teach kids, Aizawa grumbled, eyeing Izuku. I expel them. He's not your student yet, Shota, Namiri said, checking her nails. He's just my nephew asking for some tips on binding tools. Consider it a favor, Aizawa sighed, unzipping his sleeping bag and stepping out. He wore his capture weapon around his neck. Fine. You have 2 hours. Don't waste my time. He threw a roll of stiff, carbon fiber weave tape at Izuku. Izuku fumbled to catch it. This isn't a whip, Aizawa droned. Namiri teaches you to strike and pull. This is for suppression. It's about angles and friction. You don't hit the enemy, you become the environment that traps them, Aizawa demonstrated on a dummy. In a blur of motion, the cloth wrapped around the dummy's limbs, tightening with a sharp tug. Capture weapon style utilizes the element of surprise. You're small. Use that. If you get a strength quirk, people will expect you to punch. They won't expect you to bind them, Izuku tried. He threw the tape. It flopped uselessly over the dummy's shoulder. Terrible, Aizawa said. Again. Use your hips. For the next 2 hours, Aizawa was ruthless. He was different from Namiri and All Might. He didn't encourage. He just corrected. Wrong angle. Too slow. Too much slack. You're telegraphing. But by the end of the session, Izuku managed to snag the dummy's arm and pull it off balance. Adequate, Aizawa muttered. Keep practicing. If you try to use that on me in the entrance exam and fail, I will laugh at you. Wait, you're judging the exam? Izuku asked. Rational deception, Aizawa smirked. I might be. Month 8, the incident at school. Aldera Junior High had become a strange place for Izuku. He didn't slouch anymore. He couldn't. His back muscles were too developed, pulling his posture naturally upright. His uniform was getting tight around the shoulders. He walked with a fluid grace, a byproduct of Namiri's agility training, and he was quiet. He didn't mumble as much. He observed. When people whispered about him, he didn't shrink away. He glanced at them, noted their behavior, and moved on. Katsuki Bakugo watched this transformation with growing agitation. It was lunch break. Izuku was eating a bento box that looked like a science experiment, carefully weighed portions of protein, complex carbs, and vegetables prepared by Namiri, or rather, ordered by Namiri from a nutritionist service. Bakugo slammed his hand onto Izuku's desk. An explosion crackled, singing the edge of the wood. What's your game, Deku? Izuku stopped chewing. He swallowed. He looked up. His green eyes were calm. I'm eating lunch, Kaken. Don't give me that. Bakugo growled, leaning in close. You're up to something. You're walking around like you own the place. You think because you did one stupid thing in the fire, you're better than me? I don't think about you as much as you think I do, Izuku said. The class gasped. Bakugo froze. The insult didn't register at first because it was so calm. I'm busy, Kaken, Izuku continued, packing up his bento. I have training after school. I don't have time to argue about who is better. If you're going to UA, I'll see you there. He stood up. He was still shorter than Bakugo, but he didn't feel smaller anymore. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's collar. Smoke rose from his fist. You think you can look down on me? Izuku reacted on instinct, Midnight's instinct. He didn't pull away. He stepped in, reducing the distance, making it awkward for Bakugo to swing. He looked Bakugo dead in the eye and raised an eyebrow. Are you going to hit me, Katsuki? In front of everyone? When Yui looks at disciplinary records, he used the first name. Not Kaken. Katsuki, Bakugo faltered. The logic pierced through his anger. If he got suspended now, his record would be tarnished. Bakugo shoved him away. You're a pebble, Deku. A damn pebble. I'll crush you in the exams. He stormed off. Izuku exhaled, his heart racing. He sat back down, his hands trembling slightly under the desk. That was terrifying. Mom would be proud. Month 10, the sunrise. The final day arrived. It was the morning of the UA entrance exam. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, painting the ocean in hues of gold and violet. Dagoba Municipal Park was unrecognizable. The mountains of trash were gone. In their place was pristine white sand, sparkling in the dawn light. The water, once murky, rippled clearly against the shore. A paved path, which had been buried under decades of junk, was now visible. At the top of the stairs stood All Might, in his true form, wearing a yellow suit. Next to him stood Namuri, wearing a trench coat over her hero costume, holding 2 cups of coffee. Izuku stood at the bottom of the stairs, shirtless, screaming at the top of his lungs. He was sitting on top of the last piece of trash, a rusted pickup truck chassis, roaring in triumph. His body was transformed. The skinny, fragile boy was gone. In his place was a lean, corded athlete. He had the defined abs and arms of a gymnast, built for explosive power and speed. Scars from minor cuts and scrapes littered his hands and arms, badges of honor from the trash heap. "Oh my!" All Might whispered. "Goodness!" Namuri smiled, sipping her coffee to hide the wobble in her lip. "He actually did it. He finished early." Izuku jumped down from the truck. He sprinted up the stairs, not even winded. He stopped in front of them, sweat dripping down his face, his chest heaving with adrenaline. "I did it!" Izuku beamed. "I cleared the whole thing." "You did more than that, young Midoriya." All Might transformed, buffing up into his hero form in a cloud of steam. "You went beyond. You created a masterpiece." "You look good, kid," Namuri said, reaching out to wipe a smudge of grease from his cheek. "You look strong." "I feel strong," Izuku said, clenching his fist. He looked at it. "I feel ready." "Excellent." All Might boomed. "But we are cutting it close. The exam is in 3 hours. You need to shower, eat, and get to the venue. But first, the ceremony." All Might reached up and plucked a long, golden hair from his bangs. "I promise you my power," All Might said, holding the hair out with solemn gravity. "This is it. The torch passed down through generations. One for all." Izuku stared at the hair. He felt the weight of the moment. The legacy. The trust. "Eat this." Silence. Izuku blinked. "What?" "To inherit the power, you must ingest some of my DNA." All Might explained cheerfully. "Hair is the easiest method. Unless you want to drink my blood, but that's unsanitary." Izuku looked at Namuri. "Mom?" Namuri pinched the bridge of her nose. "Just eat the hair, Izuku. Don't think about it. Swallow it like a pill." "This is disgusting," Izuku muttered, taking the hair. "It is a sacred tradition." All Might insisted. "It's gross," Izuku countered. But he closed his eyes, put the hair in his mouth, and swallowed hard. He gagged a little. "Now we wait. It takes a few hours to digest and activate." All Might gave a thumbs up. "Go home, shower, and get dressed," Namuri ordered, checking her watch. "I drove the car. I'll drop you off at UA gates." "You're driving me?" Izuku asked. "Won't that look weird? The R-rated hero dropping off a student?" "I have tinted windows," she winked. "Besides, I'm working security for the exam today anyway. Uncle Hizashi is doing the intro, and Uncle Shota is lurking. It's a family affair." She threw him a towel. "Let's go, hero. You have an exam to crush." The drive to UA. The car ride was quiet. Izuku sat in the passenger seat of Namuri's sleek black sports car, his leg bouncing nervously. He wore his middle school uniform for the last time. "Nervous?" Namuri asked, eyes on the road. Terrified, Izuku admitted. "What if it doesn't work? What if I can't activate the power? What if I break my legs on the first jump?" "If you break your legs, you crawl," Namuri said fiercely. "If you can't activate the power, you use the Aikido. You use the tools. You didn't spend 10 months inhaling garbage dust to quit because of a malfunction." She reached over and squeezed his hand. "Izuku, listen to me. You have All Might's power now. That's great. But don't let it consume you. You are my son. You have the Kayama flair. When you walk through those gates, you own them. If you make a mistake, you make it look like part of the plan. Confidence is half the battle. Right, Izuku breathed. Performance. Showmanship. Exactly. They pulled up a block away from the main gate to avoid the press. Go, Namuri said, unlocking the doors. I'll see you inside. I'll be watching the monitors. Izuku stepped out. He slung his yellow backpack over his shoulder. He looked at the massive glass structure of Yue High, reflecting the morning sun. The H-shaped building loomed like a fortress. He took a step. He tripped on his own shoelace. Whoa! He braced himself for the impact of the pavement, a classic Izuku moment to ruin the cool entrance. But he didn't hit the ground. He floated. Are you okay? A bubbly voice. Izuku looked up. A girl with brown bobbed hair and rosy cheeks had touched his backpack. He was hovering inches off the concrete. It's my quirk, she smiled, pressing her fingertips together to release him. He landed softly. Sorry for using it without asking, but it's bad luck to fall on the first day, right? Izuku stared. A girl. A cute girl, talking to him. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. Channel Mom. Channel Uncle Hizashi. Izuku stammered. Then he cleared his throat. He stood up straight, dusting off his pants. Thank you? That was uplifting. Uplifting? Really? He mentally kicked himself. The girl giggled. I'm Uraraka. Ochako Uraraka. Midoriya, he said, managing a shaky smile. Izuku Midoriya. Good luck, Midoriya. She waved and walked toward the entrance. Izuku watched her go. He took a deep breath. He didn't stutter into a coma. He made a pun. It was progress. He turned back to the gate. Move it, Deku. Bakugo walked past him, bumping his shoulder hard. He didn't look back. He just kept walking, radiating intensity. Izuku watched him go. He touched his stomach, where the hair was currently digesting. He felt a weird warmth spreading through his limbs. A buzzing sensation, like static electricity under his skin. It's here. He clenched his fists. I am here, he whispered to himself. He walked through the gates. Inside the main auditorium, the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the center stage. What's up, Yui candidates? President Mike screamed into the microphone, his voice amplified to ear-shattering levels. Thanks for tuning into my school live. Everybody say hey. Silence from the students. Izuku, sitting in the middle row, couldn't help it. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Hey! It was the only voice in the hall. Heads turned. Bakugo glared. On stage, President Mike paused. Then, a massive grin split his face. He pointed a finger gun directly at Izuku. I see you, listener. Keep that energy. Izuku sank into his seat, his face burning bright red. But as he slid down, he saw a text notification on his phone. Mom, I heard that hey from the control room. Good job. Embarrassing, but confident. October 10th. Izuku smiled. He sat up straight. The exam was about to begin. The agreement made in the Koyama household that night was less of a pact and more of a custody battle over Izuku's soul. On one side was the symbol of peace, Toshinori Yagi, who believed in the purifying power of manual labor, American patriotism, and the brute force required to shatter the sky. On the other was the R-rated hero, Midnight, who believed in flexibility, psychological warfare, center of gravity, and the terrifying concept that presentation is 90% of the battle. Izuku Midoriya stood in the middle, a scrawny boy with a notebook, about to have his life dismantled and rebuilt, brick by agonizing brick. The American Dream Plan was taped to his bedroom wall. Next to it, in neon pink highlighter, was his mother's addendum. The Namuri Koyama Don't Die Protocol. Hell began at 4 a.m. Phase 1, the biology of burden, months 1 to 2. The alarm clock didn't just ring, it screamed. It was a custom present from Uncle Hizashi, a digital clock that played a recording of President Mike yelling "Wake up, listener." At 120 decibels, Izuku rolled out of bed, hitting the floor with a thud. His body ached before he even moved. Yesterday had been tire day. Today was appliance day. He shuffled into the kitchen. The days of burnt toast were over. The kitchen counter was now a laboratory of nutrition. Namuri was already awake, wearing a silk kimono and a terrifyingly serious expression. She pointed to a blender filled with a sludge that looked disturbingly like the villain Izuku had fought a week ago. Drink, she commanded. What is it? Izuku asked, eyeing the green foam. Kale, spinach, protein powder, raw egg whites, collagen for your joints, and a dash of ginger so you don't vomit, she recited, not looking up from her tablet where she was reviewing patrol logs. All might builds the muscle. I ensure the muscle doesn't tear itself off the bone. Izuku drank it. He didn't vomit, but he wanted to. 20 minutes later, he was at Dagoba Municipal Beach. The sun hadn't risen yet. The ocean was a black void, the smell of salt mixed with the rotting stench of the garbage heaps. Good morning, young Midoriya. All Might stood atop a rusty refrigerator, striking a pose that defied the laws of physics given the instability of the trash pile. In the dim light, his buff form glowed with an almost radioactive health. Today, we tackle the South Quadrant. The heavy metals. All Might bellowed. Remember, one for all is a lot of power. A vessel that is too weak will crack. You must become a tank. A Ferrari. A tank Ferrari, right. Izuku shouted back, grabbing a rope tied to a rusted safe. For 3 hours, Izuku pulled. He pushed. He dug his heels into the sand until his feet bled inside his sneakers. All Might jogged alongside him in his skeletal form, having deflated to conserve energy, shouting encouragement, and occasionally coughing up blood into a handkerchief, which was decidedly less encouraging. Squeeze the buttocks, young Midoriya. The power comes from the glutes. I'm squeezing. Izuku wheezed, his face buried in the sand as he tried to dislodge a truck axle. By 7:30 a.m., Izuku was a trembling mess of sweat and grime. He showered at the public beach tap, changed into his school uniform, and dragged himself to Aldera Junior High. School was a blur. He slept through English, ironically, Uncle Hisashi's subject. He slept through math. During lunch, he ate the bento his mother packed, boiled chicken, broccoli, brown rice. No flavor. Flavor was a distraction. But the day wasn't over. At 4 p.m., the second shift began. The Kayama living room had been cleared of furniture. Mats covered the floor. Again, Namiri said sharply. Izuku lay on his back, gasping for air. Mom! I can't feel my legs. Good. That means you're using them, Namiri said, circling him. She held a riding crop, not for hitting, but for pointing. All Might is teaching you to be a hammer, but if you're just a hammer, you're easy to dodge. You need to be the wind that swings the hammer. She tapped his ankle. Get up. Balance drills. Izuku groaned and stood on the balance ball. Close your eyes, she ordered. He closed them. I'm going to throw tennis balls at you, she announced cheerfully. Dodge them. How can I dodge if I can't? Thwack. A tennis ball hit him square in the forehead. He fell off the ball. You're relying on your eyes, Namiri lectured, helping him up. You're an analyzer, Izuku. You look, you think, then you move? That's too slow. You need to feel the displacement of the air. You need to smell the intent. You need to move before you know why you're moving. That sounds like magic, Izuku muttered, rubbing his head. It's instinct, she corrected. And until you develop it, you're going to get hit with balls. Again. Phase 2, the social decay, months 3 to 5. By month 3, the physical changes were becoming impossible to hide. Izuku's uniform, once baggy, was straining at the seams. His neck was thicker. His hands were rough, covered in calluses and small cuts from the scrap metal. But the biggest change was in his eyes. The perpetual anxiety was fading, replaced by a tired, focused intensity. This did not go unnoticed. In the locker room before P, Izuku was changing his shirt. He didn't notice the hush that fell over the other boys. His back was a map of his effort. Muscles coiled around his scapula. His arms were defined, veins prominent. He looked less like a middle school student and more like a miniature pro hero in training. The voice was low and dangerous. Izuku pulled his gym shirt on and turned. Katsuki Bakugo was staring at him. The usual explosive anger was there, but beneath it was something else, suspicion. You're juicing, Bakugo accused, stepping closer. I'm not on steroids, Kaken, Izuku said calmly, tying his shoes. Don't lie to me. Bakugo slammed the locker shut. You think I'm stupid? You go from a twig to this in 3 months? You're quirkless. It's biologically impossible. It's amazing what hauling 2 tons of garbage every morning does for your physique, Izuku said. He stood up. He didn't flinch away from Bakugo. He held his ground, a lesson from Namuri. Occupy your space. You're trying to cheat your way into UA, Bakugo spat. You think because your mommy is a hero, she bought you some experimental drugs? Is that it? Izuku's eyes narrowed. Leave my mother out of this, Izuku said. His voice dropped an octave, channeling a fraction of the menace Aizawa used when he was annoyed. Bakugo blinked. For a split second, he didn't see Deku. He saw a stranger. I'm training, Katsuki, Izuku said, using the given name again. It was a weapon now. I suggest you do the same. Unless you want the pebble to roll right over you. Izuku walked past him. Bakugo stood there, smoke curling from his palms, but he didn't attack. He couldn't. The dynamic had shifted. The prey wasn't acting like prey anymore. That night, Izuku asked Namuri about it during their flexibility session. I provoked him, Izuku admitted, stretching into a split that would have snapped his tendons 3 months ago. I didn't mean to. It just happened. Namuri smiled from her perch on the sofa, where she was drinking wine and grading papers. Good. Good? Mom, he's going to kill me. He respects strength, Izuku. Even if he hates it, Namuri said. You're learning the most important lesson of the hero course, presence. You don't have a quirk yet, but you made him hesitate with just your attitude. That's the midnight art. If you act like you're the most dangerous person in the room, people believe you. She set her glass down. Now stand up. We're doing the fan dance. Mom, please. I'm going to be a hero, not a geisha. Fans are weapons. She snapped, tossing him 2 pink folding fans. They disarm, they distract, and they hide your movements. Uncle Shota uses a scarf. I use a whip and fans. You need to learn to manipulate objects as extensions of your limbs. Dance, Phase 3, the mental game, months 6 to 8. Month 6 brought the rain. The rainy season turned Dagoba Beach into a mud pit. The trash was slippery, the sand was heavy, and the misery was absolute. It also brought the slump. Izuku was tired. His grades were slipping slightly because he was falling asleep during lectures. His body felt like one giant bruise. And the doubt started to creep in. What if I can't hold it? What if I explode? All Might is the greatest hero ever. I'm just me. He was sitting on a pile of tires in the rain, staring at his hands. All Might had left early for a meeting. Izuku was alone. Why the long face, little listener? Izuku looked up. Standing on the promenade, holding a neon yellow umbrella, was Hisashi Yamada. Uncle Hisashi? Your mom told me you missed your protein shake this morning, Hisashi said, walking down the stairs. She's worried. She thinks you're hitting the wall. The wall? The moment where the adrenaline wears off and you realize just how insane the mountain you're climbing is, Hisashi said. He sat down on a relatively clean tire next to Izuku. You scared? Terrified, Izuku whispered. All Might. He talks about one for all like it's a torch. But it feels like a bomb. He's huge. I'm just a kid who likes analyzing quirks, Hisashi hummed. You know, when Namuri first started, she was terrified of crowds. Izuku blinked. Mom? No way. She loves the spotlight. She loves it now, Hisashi corrected. But back in UA? She was shy. She had this quirk that put people to sleep, and she was afraid she'd accidentally knock out her friends. She compensated by creating a persona. The dominatrix thing? It's armor, kid. It's a performance so loud that nobody notices her hands shaking. Hisashi poked Izuku in the chest. You're trying to be All Might. Stop it. You can't be him. You don't have his smile. You don't have his American catchphrases. Then what do I do? Be the analyst? Hisashi grinned. All Might wins because he's stronger. You're gonna win because you're smarter. You know every hero's weakness. You know every villain's tell. Use that brain. That's your armor. Hisashi stood up and offered a hand. Come on. We're going to karaoke. You need to scream something other than smash. Phase 4, the finishing Polish, month 9. The beach was 80% clear. Izuku looked like a Greek statue carved out of granite and anxiety. Now came the integration. Saturday mornings were no longer just lifting. They were sparring. All Might, in his weak form, stood on the sand. Okay, young Midoriya. Come at me. Try to take this flag from my pocket. Izuku crouched. He didn't just rush in anymore. He scanned the environment. Loose sand to the left. A rusted beam to the right. The wind was blowing offshore. All Might is frail in this form, but his reflexes are still god tier. I can't outspeed him. I have to trick him. Izuku grabbed a handful of sand. Ready? Go! Izuku sprinted. He feinted left, dropping his shoulder, a move from Nemuri's dance lessons. All Might pivoted to block. Izuku spun, using the momentum to fling the handful of sand into the air. Not at All Might's eyes, that would be rude, but to the side, creating a visual distraction. Ho! In that split second of distraction, Izuku didn't go for the flag. He went for the footing. He slid baseball style, sweeping his leg at All Might's ankles. All Might hopped over the leg sweep easily. Too slow, but Izuku had anticipated the hop. As All Might was in the air, Izuku used his upward momentum to snatch the handkerchief hanging from All Might's pocket. He rolled, came up to a kneel, and held up the white cloth. Got it. All Might landed, blinking. Then, a massive grin spread across his face. Blood trickled from his mouth, but he didn't care. Beautiful. All Might transformed, picking Izuku up in a bear hug that cracked 3 vertebrae. You used the environment. You predicted my movement. You didn't rely on power, you relied on tactics. Mom calls it dirty fighting, Izuku gasped, tapping out. I call it winning. Later that evening, Nemuri came home to find Izuku studying. But he wasn't studying math. He was studying her old fight tapes. She leaned in the doorway. Critiquing my form? You telegraph your somnambulist release, Izuku muttered, pausing the video. You always touch your neck before you rip the fabric. If a villain notices that tick, they can hold their breath before the gas comes out. Nemuri stared at him. Excuse me? You need a secondary feint, Izuku said, turning around. His eyes were intense. If I were fighting you, I'd wait for the hand to go to the neck, then I'd engage with a ranged attack to force you to dodge, interrupting the release. Nemuri walked over, took the remote, turned off the TV, and looked at her son. I have created a monster, she whispered proudly. A nerdy, dangerous monster. Can I have Ofe now? Izuku asked. No. The beach isn't done. And you still haven't mastered the midnight strut. Walk across the room for me. Chin up. Hips loose. You walk like a robot. Phase 5, the final day, month 10, February 26th. The morning of the exam. The sun rose over a miracle. Dagoba Municipal Beach was pristine. The mountains of trash were gone. The white sand sparkled. The ocean waves crashed against the shore, unobstructed for the first time in decades. Izuku stood atop the seawall. He was shirtless, sweating despite the morning chill. He was screaming. Not in pain, but in sheer, unadulterated triumph. I did it! All Might arrived in his yellow suit, arriving via a super jump that kicked up a cloud of freshly cleaned sand. Oh my goodness! All Might looked around. He looked at the horizon. He looked at the boy who had started as a trembling twig, and was now a powerhouse of lean muscle and scars. You finished early. All Might laughed, slapping Izuku on the back. You didn't just clean it, you terraformed it. This is beyond my expectations, I feel. Izuku looked at his hands. He clenched them. The tendons popped. I feel ready. You are ready! All Might reached into his pocket. But we are short on time. The exam starts in 2 hours. We must perform the ceremony. Izuku straightened up. This was it. The moment he became a successor. I'm ready, All Might. What do I do? Is it a blood oath? A meditation ritual? All Might plucked a long, golden strand of hair from his bangs. It shimmered in the sunlight like a holy relic. Eat this. The sound of crashing waves filled the silence. A seagull squawked. Izuku stared at the hair. He looked at All Might's serious face. I'm sorry? My DNA. You must ingest it. All Might insisted, thrusting the hair closer. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's DNA. Hair is the most efficient. Now, down the hatch. That is... Izuku gagged. That is so unsanitary. Do you want the power or not? Is there no other way? Can I just drink from your water bottle? Too dilute. Eat the hair. Izuku closed his eyes. He thought about the sludge villain. He thought about Bakugo. He thought about his mom telling him to be realistic. He grabbed the hair. For justice, he whispered, and shoved it into his mouth. It was dry. It tickled his throat. He gagged, tears forming in his eyes, but he forced it down with a dry swallow. Grah! Izuku shuddered. That was awful. Delicious power. All Might gave a thumbs up. Now. It takes about 3 hours to digest and integrate with your system. By the time the practical exam starts, you should be ready to rock and roll. A sleek black car honked from the road. Namuri leaned out the window, wearing oversized sunglasses. Get in, loser! We're going to UA, the car ride. Izuku sat in the passenger seat, vibrating. Stop shaking, Namuri said, merging onto the highway. You're going to rattle the car apart. I ate hair, Mom, Izuku said, staring into the middle distance. I ate All Might's hair. Gross, Namuri said. Did you wash it down? No. It's just sitting there. Well, forget about the hair. Focus on the plan. Namuri glanced at him. What's the plan? Izuku took a deep breath. He centered himself. Written exam, ace it. I've memorized the curriculum. Practical exam, assess the threat. Locate the objectives. Do not engage the zero-pointer. Points are based on immobilization and destruction of villain bots. And? Namuri prompted. And presentation, Izuku added. Don't look scared. If I panic, the victims panic. If I smile, he forced a smile. It was a terrifying grimace that looked like a mix of All Might and a serial killer. Okay, stop that, Namuri laughed. Work on the smile. But the eyes are good. You have my eyes. They pulled up to the curb a block away from Ye. Izuku, she said, unlocking the doors. He turned to her. I know I wanted you to go to general studies. I know I was scared. She reached out and fixed his collar. But watching you these last 10 months, watching you bleed and sweat and study. Her voice wavered. She pulled him into a hug over the center console. You're already a hero, Izuku. Now go get the license to prove it. Thanks, Mom. He stepped out of the car. He looked up at the golden H of the UA building. It was massive. It was intimidating. Izuku adjusted his yellow backpack straps. He felt the phantom weight of tires on his shoulders. He felt the ghost of a whip snapping at his ankles. He felt the warmth of the hair in his stomach, a dormant sun waiting to rise. He took a step forward, and immediately tripped over his own shoelace. Wah! He braced for the concrete. The embarrassment. The perfect ending to a morning of triumph. But the impact never came. He was floating. Are you okay? A girl. Brown hair, round face, infinite kindness in her eyes. She had touched his backpack. I stopped you with my quirk, she said, releasing him. He landed on his feet. It's bad luck to fall on the exam day, isn't it? Izuku stared. His brain, usually a supercomputer of analysis, flatlined. Girl. Talking. Cute. Nice. Don't vomit the hair. He said. I'm Uraraka. Good luck. She waved and walked away. Izuku stood there. He watched her go. Then, he felt a presence behind him. A heat. Get out of the way, Deku. Bakugo. Izuku turned. Bakugo looked him up and down. He saw the way Izuku's uniform fit now. He saw the calmness. Don't think a few months of steroids makes you a match for me, Bakugo growled, shouldering past him. Izuku didn't step back. He watched Bakugo walk away. I'm not on steroids, Kaken, Izuku whispered to the wind. I'm on hair. He walked through the gates. The written exam. It was easy. Almost insultingly so. Izuku had spent his life analyzing quirk laws and hero ethics. The math questions were standard. The English section, well, having Uncle Hizashi shout grammar rules at you during Sunday brunch paid off. Question 4. The prepositional phrase in the sentence the villain hid under the bridge modifies which word? Easy. Hid. Uncle Hisashi sings a song about this. He finished with 20 minutes to spare. He looked around. Bakugo was writing furiously, looking like he wanted to murder the paper. The orientation. The auditorium was dark. Present Mike was on stage. Welcome to my live show. Everybody say hey. Silence. Izuku, out of pure reflex conditioned by months of exposure, cupped his hands. Hey, he froze. He hadn't meant to do that out loud. The entire auditorium turned to look at him. Bakugo looked like he was going to have an aneurysm. Present Mike pointed at him. I see you, listener. Love the energy. Izuku sank into his seat, covering his face. Performance. Presentation. Oh God, I want to die. But as Mike explained the robots, 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and the massive 0-pointer, Izuku's mind started racing. Robots. Inorganic. No pain receptors. My Aikido won't work on them directly. I can't throw a robot. I need to strike. Or use tools. A student with blue hair and glasses stood up, Tenya Ida. He criticized the pamphlet, and then pointed at Izuku. And you? The one with the curly hair. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to make friends, leave. Izuku stood up. The old Izuku would have stammered an apology. The new Izuku, trained by the R-rated hero to handle hecklers, took a breath. I'm muttering because I'm strategizing, Izuku said clearly, his voice projecting diaphragm, not throat. If that distracts you from your own preparation, perhaps you should focus on your own mental fortitude. The room went dead silent. Ida blinked, stunned. He sat down slowly. I see. My apologies. Izuku sat down. His heart was hammering 200 beats per minute. Did I just sass a random student? Mom is going to be so proud. Okay. Mike shouted, breaking the tension. Time to deploy. Head to your battle centers. Izuku stood up. He walked toward the exit. He felt a rumble in his stomach. A heat spreading through his veins. The hair was digesting. One for all is waking up. He stepped into the sunlight of Battle Center B. It was time to break something. The bus ride to Battle Center B was a suffocating experience. And not just because the air conditioning was broken. The vehicle was packed with teenage adrenaline, nervous sweat, and the crackling energy of 100 different quirks waiting to be unleashed. Izuku Midoriya sat near the back, clutching his yellow backpack like a lifeline. He was vibrating. A low-frequency tremor started in his heel and worked its way up to his jaw, making his teeth chatter softly. It's happening. It's actually happening. He closed his eyes, trying to center himself. He visualized his mother's training room. The smell of incense. The sound of the whip cracking. Breath in, breath out, Namuri's voice echoed in his memory. Panic is the enemy. Panic makes you stiff. Stiff things break. Be water. Be the whip. He inhaled deeply through his nose, holding it for 4 seconds, then exhaling for 4. The shaking in his legs subsided slightly. Then, his stomach gave a violent lurch. The hair, the golden strand of All Might's DNA was currently dissolving in his gastric acid. It felt heavy, like he had swallowed a lead fishing weight. Was it working? Was it supposed to feel like anything? All Might had said it would take a few hours to digest. What if it doesn't work? The intrusive thought bloomed like a weed. What if I run out there, try to punch a robot, and just break my hand because I'm still just Izuku? Hey! Izuku's eyes snapped open. The boy sitting next to him, a guy with blonde hair and a sparkly naval laser belt, was looking at him with concern. You look like you're about to throw up, Manami, the boy said. Do you need a bag? I know. No, I'm fine, Izuku squeaked. Just visualizing. A mental exercise. Sparkling. The boy gave him a thumbs up. The bus hissed to a halt. The doors folded open. Battle Center B. It wasn't an arena. It was a city. A sprawling, concrete metropolis of mock office buildings, paved streets, and traffic lights, all enclosed within massive walls. It looked bigger than the neighborhood Izuku grew up in. This is UA, Izuku whispered, stepping off the bus. The scale of it was crushing. The budget alone for this single exam must have been in the billions of yen. He adjusted his belt. Unlike the other students, who wore tracksuits or simple gym gear, Izuku was wearing a modified tactical setup. It was a dark green utility jumpsuit made of reinforced Kevlar weave, a prototype Namuri had snagged from a support company she endorsed. Around his waist was a utility belt containing a collapsible bowstaff, a grapple line, smoke pellets, and a few pouches of Midnight Special itching powder, non-lethal, obviously. Because he was technically quirkless on his application, the paperwork hadn't been updated to reflect one for all yet. UA had allowed him to bring support items under the quirkless/minor quirk accommodation clause. He looked around the crowd. He saw the girl from the gate, Uraraka, standing near the front, looking nervous. He took a step toward her. Maybe he should wish her luck? It would be the polite thing to do. Excuse me. A hand chopped the air in front of his face. Izuku flinched back. It was the tall boy with glasses from the auditorium. Tenya Ida? He loomed over Izuku, his engines humming softly on his calves. You again, Ida stated, adjusting his glasses. I saw you looking at that girl. Are you planning to distract her? She appears to be focusing on her concentration. Interference is a violation of the hero code. What? No. Izuku stammered, his hands coming up in a defensive posture. I was just going to say good luck. I wasn't going to. Strategy requires focus. Ida chopped the air again. We are competitors here. Fraternizing is illogical. Izuku shrank back. He's intense. He's like a robotic Uncle Shota. Right. Start. The voice boomed from the observation tower. The students froze. They looked around, confused. There was no countdown. No on your marks. High above them, perched on the tower, President Mike leaned into the microphone. What's wrong? There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! Run! The die is cast. While the other examinees were still processing the lack of a countdown, Izuku's body moved. Real battles. No warning. It was the same lesson Namuri had drilled into him. Villains don't count down. Izuku sprinted. He burst past the stunned Ida, his boots pounding the pavement. He was the first one through the gates. We have a listener in the lead. Mike screamed. Izuku didn't look back. He ran down the main street of the mock city, his eyes scanning the windows, the alleys, the rooftops. 3 types of villains. 1-pointer, fast but weak. 2-pointer, defensive. 3-pointer, heavy artillery. Find them. Neutralize them. A mechanical whirring sound came from an alley to his left. Target acquired. Izuku skid to a halt, pivoting on his heel. A 1-pointer, a one-wheeled robot with long arms, burst out of the shadows, its red eye locking onto him. Target acquired. Eliminate. It lunged. Izuku's instinct screamed at him to punch it. To summon the power of All Might and smash it into scrap, he clenched his fist. He reached for the pool of heat in his stomach, and he hesitated. The image of All Might's exploded soda cans flashed in his mind. If I use it at 100%, my arm blows off. I can't finish the exam with one arm. The robot was fast. It swung a metal claw at his head. Izuku ducked. The claw whooshed over his hair. Use the tools. Use the training. Izuku reached to his belt and snapped his wrist. The collapsible bowstaff extended with a metallic shhh clack. He didn't try to bash the robot's armor. Namuri taught him anatomy. Robots had anatomy too. Joints. Sensors. Wiring. Izuku sidestepped the robot's second swing. He thrust the end of the staff into the gap between the robot's wheel and its chassis. Leverage. He pulled up hard. The robot's momentum worked against it. The wheel jammed. The robot tipped forward, crashing face first into the pavement with a shower of sparks. Its red eye flickered. Izuku didn't wait. He spun the staff, bringing the weighted end down hard on the robot's exposed visual sensor. Crunch. The light went out. 1 point, Izuku panted. He retracted the staff. That took 10 seconds. Too slow. Behind him, the rest of the students had caught up. Explosions, lasers, and acid blasts filled the air. Out of my way! A student with a tail, Ojiro, smashed a 2-pointer with a martial arts kick. Take that. A student with tape elbows, Siro, immobilized a three-pointer and swung it into a wall. Izuku watched them. They were efficient. They had quirks suited for destruction. I'm falling behind. He started running again. He turned a corner and found a two-pointer blocking the path. It was shaped like a scorpion. Izuku charged. He threw a smoke pellet at its face. The gray cloud obscured its sensors. Visual error. Izuku slid underneath it. He saw the exposed cabling on its underbelly. He whipped out his tactical knife, blunt edge strictly for prying, and jammed it into the bundle of wires, ripping them free. The robot powered down instantly. 3 points total, Izuku muttered, scrambling out from under the chassis. But the gap was widening. 40 points. Someone shouted in the distance. 28. Shouted another. Izuku's heart began to hammer against his ribs. I have 3 points. 3. That's failing. That's definitely failing. Panic began to rise, cold and sharp. He needed power. He needed one for all. He stared at his hands. He could feel it now. The energy was there, buzzing under his skin like a hive of angry hornets. It wanted out. It wanted to detonate. If I use it, I break. If I don't use it, I fail. 6 minutes remaining. Mike announced. Izuku took off running again. He found a group of one-pointers. He engaged them with his staff and his agility. He jumped off walls, he used his grapple line to trip them, he used every dirty trick Namuri had taught him. He got his score up to 12, but 12 wasn't enough. Not for Yue. His breathing was ragged. Sweat stung his eyes. He turned a corner onto the main avenue, desperate for a three-pointer he could somehow disable. Then, the ground jumped. It wasn't a vibration. It was an earthquake. Boom, boom. Dust billowed from the end of the street, swallowing the buildings. A shadow fell over the city, blocking out the sun. Izuku looked up. And up. And up. It was the zero-pointer. It was colossal. A moving skyscraper of green metal and malice. It swiped a massive hand, effortlessly crushing a 3-story building, sending concrete raining down like hail. Threat level, catastrophic, the robot droned, its voice vibrating in Izuku's chest. The reaction from the other students was instantaneous. It's the gimmick! Run! There's no points for that thing. Just get away! A wave of students turned and fled, rushing past Izuku like a stampede. Even Ida was running. Focus on survival. It's an obstacle to avoid. Izuku stood frozen. His legs were shaking. This was fear. Primal, evolutionary fear. Run. Move. Go. He took a step back. Oh wow! The sound was faint, buried under the roar of collapsing masonry. But Izuku heard it. It was the sound of pain. He stopped. He looked toward the dust cloud. Through the haze, he saw a figure trapped under a slab of concrete. It was the nice girl. Uraraka. She was pinned. She was trying to lift the debris, but she was exhausted. And the zero-pointer was looming directly over her, its massive tread grinding toward her position. The other students were gone. The teachers were watching. Surely they would stop it. Surely they wouldn't let a student get crushed? But villains don't stop. Izuku didn't think. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. He didn't check his point total. The analysis paralysis that had plagued him for years vanished. He ran. Hey! He screamed, sprinting toward the robot. Hey! He reached Uraraka. The slab was heavy. He tried to lift it with his normal strength. It budged an inch, but not enough. The robot was 50 meters away. 40. Run! Uraraka gasped, her face pale. You have to run. Shut up! Izuku snapped, adrenaline flooding his system. He looked at the robot. He looked at the massive metal faceplate looming above them. I can't lift the rock fast enough. I have to stop the robot. But how? It was the size of a mountain. His staff was a toothpick against it. Power. He needed the power. Izuku turned to face the zero-pointer. He crouched. All Might said to clench my buttocks. Mom said to visualize the flow. He closed his eyes for a microsecond. He felt the knot of energy in his stomach. He grabbed it. He pulled it. Instead of letting it flood his whole body, which he knew would blow him apart, he tried to channel it. Like water in a hose. Like the snap of a whip. Right arm. Only the right arm. Red veins of energy glowed on his skin, visible through the Kevlar of his suit. The sleeve of his jumpsuit rippled. Smash! Izuku didn't punch the robot. He was too far away. He didn't have a flight quirk. He jumped. The jump alone cracked the pavement beneath him, shattering the concrete slab pinning Uraraka, freeing her, though he didn't notice. He rocketed into the air, soaring upward, past the first floor, past the second, level with the robot's face. He was floating in the air, face to face with the machine. I can't punch it. If I punch it, my arm shatters and I fall to my death. He remembered the beach. He remembered Namuri's lessons on air displacement. Don't hit the target. Hit the air in front of the target. Izuku drew his right arm back. The power of one for all screamed in his muscles. His bones groaned under the strain. He didn't make a fist. He extended his fingers, his hand open. He snapped his arm forward in a whipping motion. A palm strike aimed at the empty air, focusing every ounce of that stockpiled energy into the fingertips. Delaware. Slap. It wasn't a cool name, he'd work on it later. The air pressure detonated. It wasn't a punch, it was a cannon blast of compressed wind. The shockwave erupted from his hand, visible as a distortion in the atmosphere. The blast slammed into the zero-pointer's face. Crunch boom. The metal faceplate caved in. The sheer force of the wind pressure crumpled the robot's head like a soda can. The massive machine groaned, tilted backward, and began to fall, its internal systems destroyed by the concussive force. Izuku felt a sensation of white-hot agony. He looked at his right arm. It wasn't gone. It wasn't missed. But his fingers were purple and broken, bent at unnatural angles. His forearm was bruised black and blue, the muscles torn, the sleeve of his expensive suit shredded. Ack! Izuku gasped, the pain hitting his brain like a sledgehammer. Gravity took hold. He began to fall. I stopped it. I did it. Wait. I'm falling. He looked down. The ground was rushing up. He tried to move his legs to land, but he was exhausted. The single attack had drained his stamina. He was in free fall. I have one arm left. Use the grapple. He reached for his belt with his left hand. He fumbled for the grapple gun. Too slow. I'm going to hit the pavement. Slap! A hand struck his cheek. Izuku stopped falling. He hovered inches from the ground. He opened his eyes. Uraraka was there, leaning over a piece of debris, panting. She had her fingertips pressed together. Her face was green with nausea. Release, she whispered. Izuku dropped the remaining 3 inches, landing softly on his back. Ugh, Uraraka groaned, and promptly vomited a rainbow of sparkles onto the pavement. Time's up. The buzzer sounded. The exam was over. Izuku lay on his back, staring at the artificial sky. His right arm was throbbing with a pulse of agony that synced with his heartbeat. 0 points, he thought dully. I spent the last 10 minutes running around with a stick, got 12 points, and then broke my arm on a robot worth nothing. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. I'm sorry, All Might. I'm sorry, Mom. Whoa, did you see that? He took it out in one hit. Was that a wind quirk? Or a strength quirk? The other students were gathering around, whispering. Move aside. Make way. A small, elderly woman in a nurse's uniform was pushing through the crowd. It was Recovery Girl. Oh dear, she clucked, looking at the wreckage of the robot and then at Izuku. You kids and your destruction. It's getting worse every year. She knelt beside Izuku. She looked at his arm. Nasty break, she observed. But clean. You didn't shatter the bone, just fractured it. And the muscle tearing, It looks like your body isn't used to your quirk yet. She leaned in. Are you Namuri's boy? She whispered. Izuku nodded weakly. Figures. You have her reckless streak. She puckered her lips. Kiss. She kissed his forehead. A wave of exhaustion washed over Izuku, deeper than before. But the pain in his arm vanished, replaced by a dull itch. He watched as the purple bruising faded slightly and the fingers straightened out. It's not fully healed, Recovery Girl scolded, handing him some gummies. You'll need a cast for a week. I used up your stamina. Any more and you'll die. Go home and sleep. She turned to Uraraka. And you, dear? Nausea? Yes, Uraraka moaned. Izuku sat up slowly. He cradled his bandaged arm. He had survived. He had used the power, but as he looked at the scoreboard in his mind, the number 0 burned bright. The aftermath, the Koyama household. The week following the exam was a funeral procession of silence. Izuku didn't talk. He stared at the wall. He lifted weights half-heartedly with his good arm. Namuri tried to cheer him up. She cooked, ordered, his favorite foods. She offered to let him patrol with her, illegally. She even offered to let him reorganize her hero memorabilia collection. Nothing worked. I failed, Izuku said over dinner on the third night. I panicked. I didn't get enough points. And then I broke my arm on a distraction. It wasn't a distraction, Namuri said firmly, pouring herself a glass of wine. You saved a girl. Saving people doesn't get you into the hero course, Mom. Destroying robots does. That's the criteria, Namuri sighed. She knew the truth. She knew about the rescue points system, but she was sworn to secrecy. It was torture watching him mope. Just wait for the letter, Izuku. Yui surprises people. The letter. It arrived on a Tuesday. Izuku was in his room, doing one-arm push-ups. Namuri slid the envelope under the door. It's here, she called out softly. Izuku stared at the envelope. It was heavy. It had the Yui wax seal. He sat at his desk. He took a breath. He opened it. A small metal disc fell out. It clattered onto the desk. A hologram projected into the air. I am here. As a projection, All Might filled the room, his pixelated form booming. Young Midoriya. It has been a week. I apologize for the silence, but I have been busy. I am a teacher at UA now. Surprise! Izuku didn't smile. He watched with dead eyes. You did well on the written exam. Flying colors. But the practical, 12 combat points. Izuku put his head in his hands. 12 points is not enough to pass. By the standard metric you failed. Izuku closed his eyes. I knew it. However, All Might leaned into the camera. Do you think a hero course would reject someone who saves lives? Madness. A hero is one who meddles. The video changed. It showed Uraraka standing in an office, pleading with President Mike. Please. Can I give my points to him? He saved me. He lost time because of me. He definitely has 0 points, but he saved me, Izuku gasped. Uraraka-san, you inspired others, young Midoriya. And that is a metric we value. All Might returned to the screen. The entrance exam has a hidden component. Rescue points. A panel of judges watches your actions. And for risking your own success to save a competitor from a threat that offered no reward. The score appeared on the screen. Villain points, 12. Rescue points, 60. Total, 72. 60 rescue points. All Might shouted. That puts you near the top of the class. Izuku stopped breathing. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in silence. The door burst open. Namuri stood there, holding a bottle of champagne for her, and a bottle of sparkling cider for him. She was wearing a party hat. Well? She asked, grinning. Izuku looked at her. Tears streamed down his face. Huge, fat tears that soaked his shirt. I got in, he sobbed. I got in. Namuri dropped the bottles on the bed, hopefully not breaking them, and tackled him into a hug. I knew it! She cried, squeezing him. I knew it! My little hero. My little green bean. I have to tell All Might. Izuku blubbered. He knows, honey. He's the one who graded you. He gave you full marks for the smash. She pulled back, holding his shoulders. You're going to UA, Izuku. You're going to be a hero. April, the first day. The U uniform looked good on him. The gray blazer fitted his broadened shoulders perfectly. He tied the red tie with practiced ease. Namuri had taught him how to tie a tie when he was 6. A gentleman always knows his knots. Do you have your pass? Namuri asked, fussing over him at the door. Your handkerchief? Your pepper spray? Mom, I have one for all now. I don't need the pepper spray. Take the spray. Eyes are always vulnerable. She slipped the canister into his pocket. And remember what I told you about Aizawa. Don't look him in the eye when he's tired? No. Don't let him intimidate you. He feeds on fear. If he threatens to expel you, just nod and say okay, Uncle Shota. It ruins his fun. I can't call him Uncle Shota in class. Izuku horrified. Fine, Eraserhead. Just go. She kissed his cheek. Knock him dead. But not literally. Izuku walked to the station. He took the train. He walked up the hill to UA, Class 1A. The door was massive. This is it. The elite. He stood in front of the door. He could hear voices inside. Remove your foot from the desk. It is disrespectful to the upperclassmen who crafted it. Ha! Stop telling me what to do, Four Eyes. You want me to blast you, Ida and Kaken? Great. Izuku took a deep breath. He channeled the midnight strut. Chin up. Shoulders back. He slid the door open. The noise stopped. Bakugo looked up. His eyes narrowed. Ida spun around. Ah. You are Midoriya, Izuku said, walking into the room. He didn't cower. He walked to his desk, seat 18, and set his bag down. Midoriya! Ida marched over. I must apologize. I misjudged you at the exam. You perceived the true nature of the test while I was blinded by the surface rules. I, Tenya Ida, salute you. It's okay, Ida-kun, Izuku smiled politely. We were both doing our best. Deku. Bakugo was standing at his desk. He looked furious. Confused. How? Bakugo whispered. You had 0 points. I checked the board. Then it updated. Rescue points, Kaken, Izuku said coolly. Turns out saving people counts. Before Bakugo could explode, the door slid open again. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. A man in a yellow sleeping bag was lying on the floor in the doorway. He looked like a caterpillar that had given up on life. He sipped a jelly pouch. The class froze. The man unzipped the bag and stood up. He was disheveled, unshaven, and looked like he hadn't slept in a decade. Shota Aizawa. Eraserhead. His dark eyes swept the room. They landed on Izuku. Izuku didn't flinch. He gave a microscopic nod. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. He recognized the stance. Namiri's stance. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, he drawled. It took you 8 seconds to shut up. That's irrational. He reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. Put these on and meet me on the field. What about orientation? A pink-skinned girl asked. Yuri is a freestyle school, Aizawa said, turning his back. That means I can run it how I want. Orientation is a waste of time. He paused at the door. Midoriya. Izuku stood up. Yes, sensei? If you break your arm again, Aizawa said, his voice low enough that only the front row heard, I'll tell your mother she failed as a trainer. Don't embarrass us. He walked out. The class stared at Izuku. Us? A boy with red hair whispered. What did he mean by us? Izuku sighed, grabbing his gym uniform. It's a long story.